Hey guys, welcome to another IPT2. And this week we are going to be jumping into a topic that we think is important, but not everybody will have it at the forefront of their mind all of the time. It is something that affects a lot of trainers. It affects pretty much everybody, and that is what other people think of us. Now, as somebody who has been in the fitness space for a long, long time now, having said many times as well, I don't care what people think, it's not always the truth. And although you can't be liked by everybody, and I do try to highlight that as a thought process for anybody going through our kind of coursework. You can't be everybody's cup of tea. Some people like coffee, some people don't like tea, some people like tea but they like it with milk. You get the idea. There's going to be different variations of what people like out there. What you have to do as a person, as a trainer, is to build a community around yourself with people who believe in what you're saying. Now, obviously, if you've had a good education and you're saying the right things, then it comes down to your personality and how you get things across. Now, we see it all the time on social media that people can have quite a charismatic persona about them, but actually spout a lot of incorrect rhetoric or try to sell products off the back of information they're selling or saying, sorry. And when we look at the information that these people put out there, a lot of the time it's with intent. And for a good trainer there should still be some of that. But when we look at how people will perceive you and the way you do things, it can then start to become the fact that you come across as a salesman rather than a trainer. You come across as somebody who is dedicating their life to money rather than dedicating their life to helping others. And I'm a big advocate of the fact that if you help other people and you do good service, then you will be paid well for what you do. If you provide a mediocre service and you're not quite as good as you could be, then you probably will get paid a relative amount. And if you give poor service, then the likeliness of you retaining services and gaining more service is going to be low. You're not going to make that much money. You will always get people who will buy a cheap personal trainer. You'll get people who buy cheap courses because maybe that's their budget, and that's okay. But my then thing I would come back at those people with would be, wouldn't you rather save your money, save time, and gain more money into the saving pot, and then buy the trainer or the course or whatever it is you're purchasing and know that you're getting a better quality of service because you paid that little bit extra? Now, people are going to think different things of you depending on what you do, but really the crux of the thing that you should be looking at is, yes, we have to earn a living off of fitness. It's our passion, it's what we want to do. But there's ways and means of going about doing that. And we see all the underhanded tactics and stuff out there. And consumers eventually see that too. Now, this first part of the podcast has really been going over a lot of the kind of sales tactics and bad things, because when people who want to acquire your services see all the kind of salesy stuff you're doing, do you think that they would actually want to buy your course. There are going to be outliers, sorry, and I always do say that there will be somebody who maybe wants to purchase something cheaply, or maybe somebody who just isn't clued up on what they should be doing, and they buy service and they get a bad service and they get a sour taste in their mouth, and then it's maybe a long time before they will get the services of a trainer again, if ever. I've dealt with people who have had bad service, and I've had to show them that personal trainers aren't just money grabbers or trying to sell something to you all the time. There is a perception out there still that personal trainers are just money grabbers, and you're paying for something that you can learn online. And yes, guess what? You can go online and learn how to do basic programming. You can go online and learn to do nutrition. You can go online and there'll be a million different ways it tells you to do something, and you can try to learn things, but it's time consuming. It's not by experts a lot of the time. It is going to give you a kind of harder path to move forward. And because the public has this perception that they can go and do it themselves, they don't realise the time they'll save, or the effort, or just even getting to their goal quicker and being able to select another goal. These are things that the public don't really think about a lot of the time when it comes to their choice of trainers or not having a trainer. And a lot of the time people will opt to do it themselves because they think that's the best way forward. They think, oh, do you know what? Personal trainers are shit. I see them in my gym, they're crap, they look crap, they do crap. I've seen them doing this weird thing with their client. I've seen them do something that just looked horrible. And believe it or not, we see these things all the time in the gym too. All the tutors here at IPT, we continually see people, not just normal gym goers, but trainers doing stuff incorrectly. Because a lot of the time when a trainer gets their qualification, they want to earn money. They've spent money to become a trainer, so they want to go and earn money as fast as possible. And that's part of the problem, because if there was a little bit more time spent honing your craft, then guess what? You would be perceived a lot better. You wouldn't have people looking at you in the gym and thinking, oh, that looks terrible what they're doing, or that person's form is terrible, or why are they not doing like the corrections there? And that then starts to give you a bad reputation. Again, just the demeanour of a lot of trainers on the gym floor can be very off-putting. You know, they don't come across as very friendly people a lot of the time. And the ones who do try get friendly out there and speak to other people a lot of the time come across as if they're just trying to sell their services again. So what do we do? What's the solution? Now, you have seen that we've now transitioned into a more physical in-gym presence and how you can be perceived there. I think one of the biggest things, and again, a good course usually covers some of these points, but if you take out your mobile phone when you're with a client, it looks unprofessional. If you are scruffy in the gym, it looks unprofessional. If you're running about with your head down, it looks unprofessional. If you are late, it looks unprofessional. If you are not giving good service, looks unprofessional. If you're sitting down and your client is doing something, it looks unprofessional. Again, you can see how very easily you can be perceived as unprofessional very quickly. And the problem is, once somebody perceives you as being unprofessional and they see a few items of things that are unprofessional, They are not going to think of you as professional, and they are not going to be an advocate for you or your services. So, what can we do? Well, I do think it comes along the lines of self analysis and thinking about the things you do, because that's what other people will then use to make up their minds on you. And you have done this a million times in your head as well. When you see somebody, you make a judgment on them. You read a book by its cover. And I know we're told never to do that, but there's a lot of cues and signals and body language and other stuff involved that can signal to people this is what this type of person is like. And if we look at that and we look at ourselves and we think about how we deal with people, how we approach situations, how our mindset is, I mean, just today, I think if you've been out driving on the roads and you see somebody who's driving a little bit slower, your first thing, you're going to shout at them, you're going to say, why are you driving so slow? You're not going to be considerate. You're going to maybe even in some cases honk the horn, get some sort of road rage, because you haven't thought about the other person. You haven't thought about what's happening there. Maybe they have a birthday cake in the car and they're going slowly so that they don't damage the cake. Maybe they have kids in the car and the kids are annoying the driver, so they don't want to go any faster in case of an accident. We have to be considerate in the first instance to then help people make up their minds on us. And again, an unfortunate thing of the fitness industry is you are a walking advertisement, because people don't buy personal training, they buy people, they buy you. So what are you going to do, or what changes are you going to make to help people understand that you're going to provide good service? What kind of things can you do to initiate good conversations that aren't just all about the sales? What are you going to do about things that are in your control that can affect the way people see you and what they think of you ultimately? Now, like I said at the start of this podcast, that a lot of the time I, in the past, have said, I don't care what people think of me. And to an extent, I really don't. I really don't care what people think about me, because I'm very secure in the person I am. I'm very secure in the fact that I have the feedback that I do what I do as a service and it's good. So I also have the humility to say I'm wrong, and if there was bad service provided, rectify it. I am not looking for any kind of validation anymore. I'm not looking for people to be yes men and say everything I do is great. I can 100% take criticism as an adult, as long as it's given in the correct manner. And I can be very relaxed about myself, and I can be relaxed about working with IPT as well, because I know what they provide is very good. So with all that in mind, when I have to talk about it, I don't really want to sell to somebody, because everybody in their gran is trying to sell something these days online. So the market is always going to be there, and people will ask, what do you sell? What do you do? But at the end of the day, I believe so much in what we do that I don't need to sell it. It doesn't have to be a thought process for me. I will explain it. And I'll let the person make up their mind. I'll tell them facts. I'll explain what it's been like in my opinion. I'll let them go get other opinions. And then if everything's good and they believe we are correct for them, then great. But they've formed their opinion, what they think then about what I'll be like as a tutor or a personal trainer and what the company will be like to work with. They've made that. They have completely made that in their head. Yes, other people might help them get to that conclusion. Yes, they will have their own thought processes on it. But that's what people think. And then if you get a good reputation and people think well of you, you tend to do better. And ultimately, that's what this podcast is about. There's a lot of personal trainers out there who struggle. I know this because they come to us and they tell us. And there's a lot of people out there who, a lot of trainers out there who find it hard to speak to people, to move about the gym floor, to do sales activity and marketing that isn't sleazy or underhanded. And there's now a lot of people out there who will feed on people who are vulnerable. There's a lot of fitness marketers out there who will feed on personal trainers who literally are on their last legs and they feel they need somebody to help them get a little bit of a boost, get more sales in. And instead of doing the work themselves, they pay extortionate amounts of money, maybe the last that they've got, to try go all in on a fitness career. And that's not the way it should be. It's not the way it should be in any career. Never mind in a career where you're trying to help people. Can you imagine if doctors were fitness professionals and they had to go out and say, you need to come to our practice because we do X, Y, and Z. We'll tell you about this and how to keep yourself healthy. Doctors would not last. And that's not a derogatory thing on doctors. It's the fact that any industry you can think of, if they had to act like the fitness industry does, they wouldn't survive. And we're starting to see it more and more with different things online because everybody's trying to sell something. They're trying to get their online personality across. But we deal with people online, yes, but we also deal with people in person. And even if you're behind a camera and you're giving advice to people and you are being different on camera so that you can sell some stuff, and then the people come and see who you really are, that's when things are going to be very difficult for you and where you will lose traction with clients and not be as successful. So there's a lot of diverging stuff to think about here. There's definitely the physical element, the in-person element of people being around you and making up their minds about what you're like and what others think of you in the gym will have a direct impact on your sales. And I see it all too much when people think, especially as a male trainer and being almost 6 foot, being bald, having tattoos, and I've had that my entire career, I can come across as somebody who is maybe not the nicest person to talk to. But as soon as I open my mouth and I start speaking to people and I start giving them information and trying to help them, they realise very quickly that that was a false assumption and their mind changes. What they think of me as a personal trainer used to change very quickly as soon as I started speaking. But because I'm a relatively big guy, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the smallest, but I'm a relatively big guy. So when I came into an area of the gym, there is going to be preconceptions because that's what people do. We spoke about this earlier about the whole judging a book by its cover. Now, that's all well and great, and people are allowed to have their opinions, but it doesn't mean it's the ultimate truth. So, as a personal trainer, the best thing you can do in person is to speak to as many people as you can and be your genuine self. Be a genuine person who wants to help everybody and get the message across to people as much as possible. And you will see returns on that. You will see people who want to be around you, who will advocate you, who will tell other members in the gym about you. And eventually it spreads like a little bit of a wildfire. And that's a great piece of advice to think about. On top of that, you would then do your marketing activities and so on to then help you capitalize on that. But the first thing I would do, and the first thing I've always done as a trainer, is introduce myself to as many people as possible, get myself involved with as many people as possible in the gym, and try to be a force for good in the gym. Then we have to think about the online space, the other space where people will be making up their minds for you. And just with like in person, you can speak to hundreds of people and everybody might be loving you as a person. But there'll always be one person who doesn't like you. And that's just the way of the world. We don't like everybody. We might change your mind on people now and again, but there is going to come people in your life who don't like you. There is not a single person on the planet who I think everybody likes. Even the nicest people on the planet, they are still going to find people who don't like them. And that's okay. That's something to accept. Don't worry about it. So now we come on to the online space where you have now access to more people. There are going to be more people who don't like you as well. And a lot of the time, people get hyper focused on those people. They get hyper focused on what they can do to change those people's mind. And I don't think it should be a case of changing people's mind. It should be a case of doing what you do. Being congruent, being who you are, not being disingenuous, actually trying to come across in a truthful manner, making sure that you are out there and people can find you. That's helpful. But again, when we look at the online space and how many personal trainers are out there, you are going to find that it might be hard for you to gather an audience. You also have to remember that people just generally like fitness, so you can get lost in the noise online as well. Once you get to a certain size, obviously that changes and you will get more comments, more people speaking to you, more identification in the online space. And then obviously above that you have your kind of influencer, fitness expert levels. And again, it really comes down to how many followers you have. You could be an influencer of 10 people, or you could be an influencer of 10,000 or 100,000 or 10 million. It doesn't really matter, because if you are not being a nice person and you have all those followers and it comes out that you're not a nice person, then that's it. Your following is pretty much done. And we see that again online a lot. And it doesn't mean it's a place to be scared of. It just means that if you're going to try be underhanded about something, say like you are a weight loss coach and you're exclusively telling people to use Ozempic. This is just a made up scenario, by the way. And you showcase all your transformations of your clients, and then it comes out that you tell your clients to use Ozempic, people will think less of you. People will think you're disingenuous. You're saying it's nutrition and exercise that gets you the weight loss that you've been providing, when it's actually been a drug. So you can see by that example why you might be perceived a certain way and then things can change. And again, so many times we see things that are false online and people make stuff up about other people just for clout or attention, just to make sure that they can bring a person down, make sure they can destroy a person. And it's hard to recover once the majority of people change their mind. And even if they change their mind, there will always be that thing that that person said about you. So the online space can be a very weird place to be, but you have to be a little bit more thick-skinned if you want to be successful in the online space versus the in-person space. And I think, just to wrap up this podcast, when we look at what people think of us as trainers, as professionals, you have the concept of the individual, what actual individual people think of you as an individual. And like I said, you're the walking advertisement. You are your personal training business. So what people think of you is going to be important, even if you don't care what people think about you. In the online space, what people think of you will also play a big part in any sales and things you might do online. So again, making sure that you're just being your natural, genuine self all of the time and not trying to play up to an audience, not trying to act on camera or do things in a certain way or jump onto trends just because they're trending so you can get a few more views. We live in this society where a lot of the time people will just do things because they see somebody else having success doing it. We see a lot of food blogs out there. For one, I'm not interested in seeing somebody else's plate of food. I would rather have my own plate of food and eat it. It's nice to understand reviews and to maybe see a quick picture of something so I know what it looks like. But I'm not interested in a day in the life of somebody. It's been done to death. I'm not interested in the latest exercise that somebody's doing, because a lot of the time these exercises are actually just old regurgitated exercises. I'm not interested in a person's opinion about nutrition, because unless it's actual science, then what they're saying might be their truth and it might have happened for them, but it's not going to work for the majority of people because we all work differently. So when you think about this and you think about what others think of you, yes, it's important. Yes, we need to be aware of it. Yes, there are controllables that you can do. And the biggest takeaway I would say for everybody here is to be your genuine self as much of the time as possible. And yeah, don't worry so much. I said it right at the start, and I'm going to end with it again. I'm drinking a coffee just now, and you'll not be everybody's cup of tea. So hopefully this is giving you a little bit of insight, a little bit of thinking to do today. It's not really a podcast with a complete answer because, again, this is going to be a very individual thing. Maybe you want to play up to the camera. Maybe you want to do those things. Maybe you want to be that person in real life as well. But I would always try to be considerate of what the other person is going through, what the other person is thinking. And remember that the person in front of you isn't always going to be the person who buys your services. Sometimes the person in front of you is just going to be an advocate, and that's okay. You don't need to ram a sale down their throat. And until next time, guys, I really hope you take care of yourself. I know we're coming up to the winter month now, And I think it's important that we start to look ahead. So, in our next podcast, we will be looking at planning your 2025. So, till next time, take care, and I will see you soon.